Wait, sorry, I'm not used to running slides and speaking at the same time. Hold on, let me get this pop out of the way. Yeah, hello. Just interrupting a little bit. I think you guys are working on your Game Jam games. Just interrupting a little bit. Kind of speak about Mighty Bear a little bit, and also, our approach to building games. So, who am I? I'm Fadzuli. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Mighty Bear. It sounds super fancy, but some of the things that I'm in charge of, or like some of the things that I do day to day, is I'm still quite hands-on on writing some of the features for the games, programming some of the features for the games that we are making. I'm in charge of the engineering team and make sure that they have the tools they need to do their work. I help by running sprint planning. I help by thinking strategically about where we want to take the studio, what kind of games we want to make, creating long-term roadmaps, breaking down those long-term strategic goals into smaller, more actionable features, and then sitting down with the engineers to kind of plan out the feature and make sure we have enough people working on it, that there's enough time to finish the feature, prioritizing based on impact and also on the complexity of the feature. I used to work at Disney, where I worked on an MMORPG called Pirates of the Caribbean Online, and I worked in King, and actually that's where I met the other co-founders at Mighty Bear, and also the initial employees at Mighty Bear. So who is or what is Mighty Bear? Mighty Bear is a leading cross-platform game developer based out of Southeast Asia, but based out of Singapore. We have raised 3.3 million in funding, and over the past 6 years, we've built a world-class team. Majority of them are here in Singapore, based here in Singapore, and maybe about 20-30 of them are full-timers, outsourcers, contractors that we work with all over the world, mostly in Europe, Japan, Southeast Asia. We have a profitable portfolio of titles already in the 6 years, and our revenue has been secured for the next 2 to 3 years. So here are some of our investors and advisors. They are based not just here in Singapore, but also we have investors in Europe, we have investors in America as well. So that gives us a very global outlook in the way we think about things. So just coming into the meat of what I want to talk about, how we build games. Our approach generally is we're very fast to market, right? So the production timeframes for games usually take about 6 months to at most a year to get to market. Get to market means like either early access or like an alpha build where we can get feedback from players. So here are the games that we've released so far. The first game, World of Legends, is an MMORPG for mobile. We built that with just 7 people on the team and 2 to 3 engineers only. And actually, I probably won't recommend you try to build an MMORPG for mobile with such a small team. The second game was taking the learnings from World of Legends and mixing that with the puzzle genre, taking some of the RPG elements that we worked on in World of Legends and mixing that with a match 3 game to see if we can come up with something interesting. And then the last 2 games was built for the Apple Arcade platform. The first one is Battle Royale, multiplayer battle royale game. You can see what we did there with the name, pun. And the more recent Apple Arcade game that we released was Disney Melee Mania. We worked very closely with Disney on that, and it was a great experience for the team. So we have a thesis at Mighty Bear. All our games, we want to remove as much barrier to entry as possible. We want everybody or almost everybody to play the game, right? So what that means is that when we build a game in terms of art, in terms of design, in terms of even the technical aspects of things, how we think about building the technical aspects, it has to be mass appeal. It has to be multi-platform, accessible to anyone, with universal themes, right? So not only themes that are reflective of Southeast Asia, but themes that anyone in the world can understand and can take part in. We think that games are better with friends, right? And this kind of like digging deep into some of the experiences of the team member, the people we have in the team, right? And including myself. A lot of my experience with games was really playing with my family, my sister, playing with my cousins, and we want to rebuild that kind of experience, that kind of like being able to play with your family and with your friends, recreate that for whatever platform that we decide to support in the future. So we think like also like playing with friends makes your game like a lot more viral, right? So if you're playing a game and then you can get your friends to play, and then you can kind of compete with each other and try and improve strategies and try and improve how to play the game, like it makes the game more viral and makes you want to come back to play the game more often. and lastly, the last pillar that we have at Mighty Bear is that we try to be genre defining. What does that mean actually? So for example, if you look at Battle Royale, that's not it's not the only Battle Royale game out there. It was not the first as well, right? But I think like if we look at the history of Battle Royale games, like they tend to be extremely what do you call that? Realistic, extremely violent, like with real guns and bullets and stuff like that. And we wanted to build an experience that family members can play together. Another reason why we chose that also because this was for the Apple Arcade platform, and so the data that we were getting or we're understanding from Apple is that the people that would subscribe to that platform are usually family members, and because you can share the Apple Arcade subscription with your family, like it just makes sense for us to build a multiplayer game that is family oriented, family friendly. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about Battle Royale. I kind of talked talked about it in the previous slide, but again, like it's a non-violent Battle Royale. The way I would describe it is that like imagine just walking on the street and a food fight broke out suddenly, right? And then you're throwing like pancakes and bananas and eggs at each other. The characters in the game are like very diverse, right? We try to represent as many different cultures, as many like it's very well split between male and female characters. It's very interesting, themes in there as well. There's a chef. There's a guy dressed up as a cow. I think he's a mascot for something. There's another person, a lady actually, that's dressed up as a chicken. So very tongue-in-cheek, humorous, something that will appeal to a younger audience. This is maybe a little bit like I'll play this video in the background. So basically, we worked on this game together with Apple very closely, and this was a teaser video to kind of promote the game that we created together with Apple. Every character has a little backstory, and the idea was to kind of reveal that backstory to everyone slowly. Yeah. So the next game we worked on in the Apple Arcade ecosystem was Disney Mini Mania. And the idea behind this, like why all these Disney characters, like Disney princesses, Wreck-It Ralph, Moana, Mulan, why they all came together in this universe is because it's a fictional VR metaverse, and they're just trying to be the best hero in that metaverse, right? Again, like it's for Apple Arcade, and we're trying to make it family friendly. Also, it's a Disney IP, right? So it's very cartoony, it's very humorous, and we worked very closely with Disney to kind of, and not just like a single department in Disney, but each of this IP has a specific team that oversees it. So we had to work with very different teams. Like we had to work with the team in Pixar, we had to work with the Disney team behind Frozen, to kind of like make sure that we treat their characters well, right? And they gave us a lot of freedom actually to build their characters in the Mighty Bear way, right? So it's very unique to this universe. So I'll play this video in the background. Just give me a second. Yeah, you can see the conceit of like putting on a VR headset and getting into this VR world where you can play any of the Disney heroes. Yeah, so far these two games they use like very similar technology. The same we use Unity in at Mighty Bear, and at the start of working on Battle Royale, we decided to start using the entity component system. There were a couple of reasons for this. One is that we wanted a way that we can easily write unit tests for all the features that we write in the game, and using the normal Unity game object and mono behavior kind of setup made it very difficult to test properly, because for that kind of setup, like you need to load the whole scene, and then you need to kind of test together with the graphics at the same time. With ECS, everything is broken down in data, everything is broken down in systems, and it was very easy for us to just test like a specific part. For example, we can just test like the weapon system, like if a player clicks on the fire button or does a fire action, bullets will come out from a weapon. So it's very easy to just kind of test that specific part. But if you use like game objects and mono behaviors, you would have to load the scene, you would have to load a weapon with a character, and then you would have to trigger the firing, and then see if bullets were being spawned. With ECS, like it's just tracking like, okay, when before the data goes into the system, what is it like? And then after the data goes out of the system, what is it like? Is it what we expected? So much easier. The second reason we use ECS is that it's supposed to be built for modern infrastructure, right? So on our modern laptops and iPhones or phones, right? It's multi-threaded, right? All the software is run on multiple threads, right? And ECS builds for that kind of architecture. So we wanted that increase in performance. Yeah. So the next, I guess, this is a good segue for me to kind of move to the current project that we're working on. So all our projects in the studio have band names, and this new project is called Polar. Before it gets released, they get band names so that we can talk about the game internally. But this new project is called Polar, and actually it's going to be released tomorrow. Actually, the early access is going to be run tomorrow, and it's called Mighty Action Heroes. And basically, it's taking the learnings that we have gotten from both Battle Royale and Disney Mini Mania, and adjusting that for a new audience. In this case, like we're targeting esports and Web3 gamers. And so like, because of that, like we can use more mature themes. And in this case, we're using like 80s and 90s action heroes. It's still, you know, quite cartoony and quite fun. But we're using real weapons in the game, at least initially. Maybe later on we'll have like more funky weapons. It's still like for a general audience, so there's no blood and there's we try to cut down on the violence. So why so many kind of shifts in strategy? Like the first few games that we made was free to play for mobile. The last two games I was talking about, Disney Melee Mania and Battle Royale, is for Apple Arcade, a subscription-based platform, and Polar is for Web3, right? It's not even like we're not even targeting mobile in the beginning. It's going to be a WebGL client. So why so many change? I'm kind of like outing my age here, but like I remember like like periods of time where the game industry has changed, right? When I was a kid, you had to go to like a specific place, an arcade, to kind of play games, right? And then games started coming into the living room. You had consoles in the living room, and then eventually, games went online, and you can play, massively multiplayer games online. Things like World of Warcraft and stuff like that. And then finally, like games, started going onto mobile and becoming highly competitive. Like esports is a big thing right now. So you notice like there is this platform shift every decade, right? And if you look at it, like the game companies that make that shift every decade, they tend to do very well. So like from the 80s to the 90s, like Nintendo did very well. They released the NES and stuff like that. Sega did very well as well. And from the 90s to the 2000s, Blizzard did really well. And Zynga as well did really well with Facebook games. And then finally, like more recently, companies like King, who made that shift to mobile and free to play, and Supercell, they're doing very well right now. And we feel like Web3 is that next platform shift, right? And as a company that's growing, as a company that's very thoughtful and strategic about the space that we want to kind of operate in, like we feel like we'll like joining now at this point of time will have an outsized impact on the space and on the industry. We feel like it's a good time now to kind of build stuff in Web3 and kind of dictate or like create standards for how to create games in the space, right? I'm sure in the news there are both people saying good things about Web3 and also like more negative news on Web3, things like scams, things like routes. People are promising to build something but not delivering on that promise, for example. And we feel like we can be in the space to be positive. We can have a positive impact in the space and to show like what a professional company should do in the space. And I think that's the end of what I have to say. I'm not sure how the format of this, like, do we open up for questions? Kenneth, like, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess we can take some questions. So if you have any questions for Fadzuli, please put that in chat. And also, thank you, Fadzuli, for that wonderful talk. Yes. I guess one of the first questions I wanna just ask was how do you come up with the concept of Battle Royale in the first place? I know you talk about having a more friendly version of the battle royale genre, but how does that concept even come about? Like, how do you create that food idea in the first place?
Yeah, like, okay, so for the high level, it's like we have to make it non-violent, right? And so like we didn't want to use like real weapons, right? So we started thinking like, okay, what would be interesting, to uh kind of like describe a weapon, but it's not a weapon. And so we were thinking about a food fight. We were thinking like a food, like in general, like we thought of food fight, like maybe throwing actual food, right? And then we went further than that. We decided that, hey, like why don't we have this? I forgot her name, but why don't we have this like scientist that is very into like kind of um building a world or working towards a world where there's no food wastage, where there's no hungry, right? And so like one of the things that she created was this gadgets that can create food from air or from matter or something like that, from I don't know, rotting food, for example, converting rotting food into food that can be eaten. And that kind of like that's what like we ended with right now, like that it took time to kind of think about the conceit and think about like the storyline, the narrative behind it. But and if you play the game, it's not actually kind of like you don't have to read like a lot of text, or there's no like video that kind of explains this to you. But like if you play the game and over time you realize like there is some thought behind the narrative. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. We actually have one question in chat.
Mm-hmm.
How would you say what would be a good way to start designing a system for a game?
Um, Sorry, I need a little bit more detail than that. What do you mean by a system? Sorry, I don't know.
I
I
think
can't see
maybe
chat right now.
yeah, maybe from like a technical standpoint. Like for
Mm-hmm.
example, doing let's continue talking about battle royale. Like
Mm.
what's the first things you want to do when you design a system for these kinds of games?
Um, I guess for us, like, is to try to. So for us, it's always to try to get to something playable as soon as possible. One thing we do really well in the company is that we do a lot of play tests internally, right? So as we're building the game, like every week, we get like a whole bunch of people together and we play the game, and then we talk about, okay, what was rough, what was really fun, and what we should improve on, like in the next sprint or in the next milestone when we work on the game, right? And so for example, Battle Royale, I think the very first thing we did was movement, and then a weapon system. So you can press fire and bullet comes out and it travels and hits someone. Someone takes damage, um, and so those are the very first few systems that we work on. We try to get to a place where characters can move around, characters can shoot at each other, and then they die, right? They take enough damage to die, and then we immediately respawn those dead characters, and then we continue to play that. Like there's no call loop, or there is no like what do you call that shrinking ring system where the hot butter like kind of shrinks in and then you take damage if you're outside the safe circle. We didn't have that at first. We had like something really simple where you move around, shoot each other, and then continue to play on and on. And the very first things that we were thinking about, like we feel like we need to improve, was the movement was a little bit too slow and too clunky. The shooting was too clunky. It's very difficult for people to kind of aim because like there's a delay in when you shoot, and by the time when you shoot and you hit something, somebody already walked away, right? And so we had to find that balance between that. And so the next thing we talked about was, okay, let's create a system where we can create different kind of weapons, right? So weapons that can shoot multiple bullets, weapons that shoot projectiles that goes through obstacles, weapons that shoot like an area of effect damage and stuff like that. And then we kept going from there, and added more weapons and kind of adjusted the feel of the controls and the camera as we went along. Does that, I don't know who asked that question. Did that answer that person's question? I'm not sure who asked.
Yeah, I think they want to remain anonymous, that's why.
Okay,
But yes,
okay,
thank
got
you.
it.
Thank you for the question. I guess, is there any more questions from the audience? You can just type them in chat. Yes, we have one more question in chat. How's Mighty Bear formed and how did you all start out?
How did we start up? So, as I mentioned, just come back here. We all used to work for King, and that's where I met both Simon and Ben. This was 6-7 years ago, and King in turn was acquired by Activision Blizzard sometime in 2016, and they wanted to move the development. They want to consolidate development in Europe, right? So they wanted to move all of us in Europe, and we decided no, we wanted to stay here in Singapore. We love the warm weather very much. We don't want to go to Stockholm or something and freeze ourselves. But more importantly, I think there's a lot of opportunity here in Singapore or in Southeast Asia, right? I think it's the world's fastest mobile mobile market right now. There's a lot of like interesting startups, technology that's coming out here in Southeast Asia. There's a lot of talent, a lot of people that can do the work, right? And so this is very interesting to be in this region at this point of time. We started our own company. At first, we were just 7 people working out of Simon's dining table. But now we are like, I don't know, 70 plus people, maybe almost 80. It's changing every month, so it's hard to keep track. And actually we even have Simon's dining table in one of our meeting rooms still. We still work off that table. So so I see another question here. Are there still intern positions at Mighty Bear, and what do you look out for? I can speak from an engineering perspective. We're always looking for people to join Mighty Bear. What do we look out for? So I think we have a very unique culture at Mighty Bear. I understand from an intern perspective, right? Like, people are looking for, what the project is going to be, how are they involved in the project, what will they learn from that process, right? But from a Mighty Bear perspective, we want to give that to the intern, of course. But also what we're looking for is, someone that is a cultural fit. So someone that can communicate with the team, right? Technical ability is great, but there will be on-job training, right? So like if you don't know everything, that's okay, right? That we will probably kind of onboard you slowly and kind of teach you the ropes and kind of show you like how the architecture of the studio and how we do everything. And we don't expect you to immediately know from the start like how to contribute. We'll probably onboard you. And I see 2 other questions here. Job positions, interns, yes. Currently, top of my priority, I'm looking for senior backend engineer, intermediate to senior web developer, and a tools engineer. Those are the 3 things top of my priority. Feel free to apply. Let me show you my email again. You can apply directly to me if you're not getting a reply from any other means, and I'll reply if I can. I'm sorry, Lo, that you are ghosted, but again, just feel free to drop me an email. I'll reply.
Yep.
I guess
thank you.
that's it.
Is okay. I'll give anyone else have any more questions?
Great. If you can think of any other questions about my talk, about anything else.
There's one more question. Can you
talk
talk
more
more about how ECS is used, especially in the mobile and cross-platform context?
I think this would probably go into a lot of detail. I'm not sure. ECS like works for mobile and cross-platform. ECS doesn't work so well on WebGL, for example, and that's one of the reasons why we are moving away from ECS for the current project. Is because it, WebGL just doesn't support that. I can see maybe in some console situations where ECS might be a little bit wonky or not like fully supported. I would love to talk more about this, but I think maybe we might get into too much detail here. So Troy, please do feel free, drop me an email and then we can continue that conversation.
Yep. Okay, any last questions? Going once, going twice. Okay, if not, thank you so much, Fadzuli, for the talk, and to everyone here, thank you. Please join me in giving him a round of applause. Yes, or yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun preparing this.
Yeah.
I'll see you guys around, and good luck for your game jam as well on Saturday.